be one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be seated. All right, Cindy, would you call the roll?
Certainly. Supervisor Schneiderman,
I'm here.
Councilwoman Lofstad,
Here.
Councilman Martell,
Here.
Councilman Schiavone.
Here.
All right, so everyone is here. This is a work session. Oh, did we call John Bouvier?
Oh, I'm sorry, Councilman Bouvier.
Yes.
I'm
here.
sorry. I thought we had
No
already.
problem.
Sorry.
We skipped one. All right, so we are all here. I can see everybody via Zoom. We continue to meet through Zoom because of the pandemic and the governor's authorization to do so. Though I do look forward to a day not too far in the future where we'll be able to resume our normal in-person meetings. All right, so for today, our agenda includes a couple things. We're going to review the draft agenda. At 10:30, we're going to have an update on our CPF program with our program manager, Lisa Conbrink. Then we'll do some updates, in general updates, and then executive session on legal matters and personnel and other types of things for executive session. So does everybody have, well, maybe before we do that, I do see Ryan Murphy is here. It's been our tradition during the emergency order, during the pandemic, to have Ryan update us. He did just update us, though, at the organizational meeting 2 days ago. But Ryan, is there anything new that you want to make us aware of?
No real significant changes, Supervisor. The numbers are still, up, including for, our region, but in all honesty, it's nothing that was unexpected. We know that, post holidays, we expected to see between days 6 and 8 after the gathering day, that we would see elevation in numbers based on what we saw for, Halloween, Thanksgiving, and Christmas. So we're not seeing anything unexpected. Thankfully, our numbers are still, a bit better than some of the western townships. We're averaging in the neighborhood of about 50 new positive cases per day in the town. Hopefully we'll see those numbers, start to go down. I've portrayed the analogy before, or the picture that it's like waves piling on a shore in a storm, and, where the water doesn't have a chance to recede and pull out away from the shoreline, and it just keeps piling up. And that's kind of what we're looking at here with some of the even more elevated than normal numbers. Before the New Year's Eve holiday, the county itself was somewhere around a 10% positivity rate. So it never had a chance to withdraw and go back down to a lower percentage of positivity. And so what we're seeing is elevated numbers on top of elevated numbers on top of elevated numbers. We went from Thanksgiving increases to Christmas increases to New Year's Eve increases, and there wasn't enough lag in between for the numbers to recede and go back down. So hopefully we'll start to see that pull back a little bit. As far as the vaccinations go, no increased information that's available to us at this point in time. I will say that town departments have been taking some calls with regards to the vaccination program. 27 East ran a story the other day that prompted some public inquiries with regards to, the possible use of some of our facilities for vaccination distribution sites. We are speaking with the state. We have offered up 5 or 6 different location ideas to the state, including, our 3 senior/community centers, Red Creek Park, and then a couple of facilities that aren't under our control for their consideration, Southampton College, Gabreski, as just different options to lay on the table. We want to make sure that we position the town well to have at least one, if not multiple, distribution sites within the town of Southampton when the time comes to do so. So, in terms of getting that information out to the public, that's what's on the table right now. None of those sites have been locked in by the state. They're just things that we put out there under consideration. There is a Am I Eligible app that the state has created that people can go onto the state website and sign up for notifications to go to them when the state passes through the different phasing and reaches different segments of the population that are eligible for vaccination. There was a bit of a misunderstanding or rumor out there, and we took some phone calls on it to the effect that we were taking some sort of a list of people that wanted it. That's not the case. We don't even know which sites are going to be used yet. We're definitely not taking a list of people to sign up for the vaccination. The closest thing to such a list would be signing up via the state's Am I Eligible app to receive notifications when they get to your subgroup of the population that it might be ready for vaccination time. So that's the best and most current information that I have for you at this point.
Okay, so the people who are currently eligible, Ryan, those are
Yeah.
congregate care patients and healthcare workers, frontline healthcare workers. That's still on that group, right?
Yeah, we're still in group 1A, so it's predominantly healthcare-related workers and frontline, and more specifically, healthcare-related workers. They haven't even progressed to some of the support staff yet.
But if you are an EMS volunteer, can get it, right?
EMS, yes, without a doubt. EMTs, AMS personnel are included in 1A. Fire department, EMS personnel, because there are some departments that run EMS, but they're an actual fire department. Their EMS personnel are also included in it. Testing site employees, as well as vaccination site employees, funeral home related folks, and ME's office. That's all included in 1A. We expect that it'll be progressing to 1B soon, but we're not sure. And as was characteristic with 1A, once they started 1A, they added many different subgroups to it. We will probably see the same thing happen in 1B as well, where they add different personnel to the list. So we don't know for sure what comprises 100% of 1B yet.
The main group in 1B is what? Is that seniors over 75 or?
My understanding was that was one of the segments of the population in 1B. Our fire department personnel are also still categorized into 1B right now, our volunteer fire department personnel. So those are two of the ones that I'm aware of. Outside of that, it's sketchy on the details.
Okay. On the numbers, and then I'll turn it over to the board for questions, because I keep them every day, and you may be right that the average is around 50 for Southampton. Yesterday was 39, and our growth rate was actually on the lower side countywide. The East End, though, growth rate was actually slightly higher yesterday than Western growth rate, but it's very hard to look at this on a one-day snapshot. So just to give you an example, so yesterday, the highest number of new cases was in Hampton Bays. That's also the highest population. They had 13 new cases. In Flanders, there were 7 new cases, which is higher than we typically would see in Flanders, a smaller area than Hampton Bays. Some of the areas, Southampton Village area had 2 new cases. Riverside had 5. That's a fair amount for Riverside. And, so some of the, the numbers we've been seeing countywide in terms of fatalities are topping numbers. We haven't seen numbers like that since really mid-May. We've had days where the county fatality rate is, 20 new deaths. I mean, it's really astounding. So, and I think we all hear of all the people that we know or friends of people we know who are testing positive, some ending up in the hospital and some in very serious conditions. So it's been really a very challenging time. And we are seeing the post-Christmas, post-New Year's bump that people predicted. I'm hoping now the numbers will start to turn down. Yesterday's numbers were better than the day before. So as I said, we had, I think, 39 cases yesterday, let me see if I can pull up the day before, was 63 cases. And the day before, and then, you know, before that, it ranged roughly around 50 cases a day. So maybe that's a good sign to see that drop in yesterday's numbers, which is actually a reflection of the day before. So anyway, I'm going to continue to keep tabs on that. Let me go to the board. Anybody have any questions for Ryan, COVID related in particular? Tommy John, I think you're saying something, but you're muted. And my lip reading skills are a little weak. So, go ahead.
Yes, I was muted. Thank you. Ryan, question about the administering of vaccines in New York State. That's going to be done through hospital systems, right? And on Long Island, Northwell Health is designated as a hospital system that's going to be administering the vaccines. Do I have that information?
Yeah, yes and no. Yes, Northwell is the designated coordinator for the vaccine distribution for our region. That is 100% correct. I can tell you that they are doing vaccine distribution this week and this weekend for Group 1A at a college location in Western Suffolk. So in terms of where will the vaccine distribution occur, if that's kind of part of the question here, it may be hospital system personnel that are performing the inoculations, but it may not be at a hospital setting. So when they create an Eastern site, I wouldn't be surprised if they don't look to like Suffolk Community College Eastern Campus or the county center as, you know, drive-through vaccination locations that can handle mass quantities of people at once. I wouldn't rule that out. So it may or may not be at a hospital. It is, in fact, being coordinated by Northwell.
Okay, right. And in New York State, we don't have a unified hospital system. I mean, we have a health department, we have our county health departments, but it's not like it's a unified healthcare system, right? We have single hospitals, and then we have groups of hospitals that work together.
Yeah, you have several different systems and several different hospitals that are affiliated with one another, but we're running at least 3 or 4 different systems here in Suffolk County alone in terms of the hospital networks that are out there.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Anyone else? You know, I remind the town that we're at 50% staffing. Not exactly 50% staffing. I've left it up to the department heads. Some are at 100%. I've given department heads discretion to allow employees to work from home if possible, up to 50% to just reduce the incident rate at town hall. That is going to continue at least till January 15th. And I continue to waive the requirements or the prohibition on outdoor restaurant seating this time of year. I don't actually understand why even it is prohibited. If it's a nice day in January, I don't know why restaurants can't have people sit outside. But I do have a resolution for a public hearing to just waive that requirement throughout the pandemic. And maybe it's something we'll look at whether we even need it after the pandemic. But you know, I've been signing these emergency orders every 5 days, extending it for another 5 days. And it's at the point really where I would prefer if you guys would just simply take that action so I don't have to keep doing that. We want to encourage people. We want to keep these restaurants alive, you know, in business. So if it's a nice day, people can sit outside. That's fine. I see people doing it now in January with their little heaters. We've had some nice days. So, but it's better than I think sitting inside. So, Ryan, is there anything more that we could be doing as a town that you're aware of to keep people safe?
No, I believe we're taking all the actions possible. We just have to continue to try and message out the same messaging and consistent messaging that we've been doing all along about safety precautions. And we've also switched over some of our public messaging to information about the vaccination program as well. So there's no significant changes in the precautions people need to do, and they hopefully have been hearing these messages and taking some of the precautions for 10 months now. So hopefully we're kind of preaching to the choir a bit, and we just need people to continue to be diligent about their actions.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Ryan. All right. So let's jump over to reviewing the agenda, and so that Sunday can publish it, and then we'll try to get through this quickly, and then we'll bring Lisa Combrink in. So this is the draft agenda for the January 12th meeting. That's next Tuesday. It's a 1 o'clock meeting. We'll be doing it via Zoom. So there are a number of public hearings, 4 of them. The first one is on accepting the transfer of a gift of a portion of the former RDC Associates Limited property in East Quogue to the Community Preservation Fund program. Second is considering amending the code 312-26 vehicles and traffic to prohibit parking on Montauk Highway, County Road 80 at its intersection with Walnut Avenue and West End Avenue. The third one is a public hearing to consider amending Town Code Chapter 312, Article 7, vehicles and traffic to enact changes in the seasonal no parking regulations on select roads. That's something that Councilman Martell and others have been working on. Number 4 is a public hearing to consider amending Town Code Chapter 312, Article 10, to enact changes in the parking by permit regulation on selected roads, and that is also related to number 3, the third public hearing. Then after that, public portion, and then we get to resolutions. And the first resolution, 1093 of 2020, will need to be changed. This is authorizing me to execute a contract with Cornell Cooperative Extension for the permeable reactive barrier at Iron Point. And John's been working, Councilman Bouvier's been working with Cornell Cooperative Extension on a different location. John, what's the new location?
Maritime Park.
Which
Riverside.
Maritime?
Riverside.
Oh, the Riverside Maritime Park, to do
Yes,
a permeable reactive barrier there.
that's correct.
Okay. So you want to then, you're going to be amending
Well-
this resolution to change. We can't amend it now because it's tabled, but we'll, we can either walk a new one on, or we can amend this one on
At the next town board meeting.
the next town board meeting. All right, so the next one, Councilman Scavone, you want to read it?
Resolution of adoption enacting Article 10, 1 of Southampton Town Code, Chapter 330, zoning, to authorize the agricultural conservation districts within the town, formerly known as the agricultural PDDs.
Tommy John, we held a hearing on that, right?
We did. We did.
And I don't recall any objections. Did we receive any written objections?
We did, not written objections. We received a report from the planning board. They had us look at 2 particular items, or 1 particular item, and they asked that a inventory be done on agricultural lands and a collection of agricultural land that was 10 acres or more that would be applicable in this particular legislation, and we did that.
That was done. Okay.
Right. And by the way, for your ratification, it's 36 parcels throughout the town. It may be a couple of more. We need to do a little bit of work on that. The other thing that the planning board wanted us to consider was to reference enhanced agricultural easements rather than Section 301 of Ag and Markets Law. And we brought that to the Agricultural Advisory Committee, and we're going to go with the Ag and Markets Law definition. But keep in mind, with these conservation districts, each one that comes in gets negotiated by the town, and each one has an independent easement to go along with it.
Okay. And now has the record, the record closed on that, Tommy John?
It is. It has been.
Jim, did you have something you wanted to
I was
add?
just going to mention that they might have a tax impact, which could be preferable to the landowner if they go into the enhanced easement. The value, underlying value, is probably that much less. Probably once they get into the general easement, it reduces the taxes so significantly anyway. But I would imagine that the property tax would even be lowered a little bit more under the enhanced easement program.
Jim, do they keep track when those easements expire? Is there like a 10-year
Yes,
easement?
typically it's 10 years, I believe. Yeah.
And then the sole assessor then would adjust the property as long as she's aware of it.
Sure, of course. Yeah, they're aware of it. Yeah,
Okay, it's a lot to keep track of.
yeah.
All right, let's continue on then. The next one, Tommy John, I think you have the next one too, right?
Authorize the purchase of heavy duty, Town Board Resolution 35595 to authorize the purchase of heavy duty parts, Sterling, Mack, and Ford from Suffolk County contract. Next one, Town Board Resolution 35601 to authorize the purchase of heavy duty parts, Sterling, Mack, and Ford from Suffolk County contract. 35597 to authorize the purchase for Caterpillar heavy equipment, parts, accessories, supplies, and related services.
Resolution ID 35588, authorize the supervisor to execute the 2021 Inspirational Triathlon Racing, Inc., DBA iTri contract. Resolution
Julie, what is that contract for?
for iTri.
Yeah, but is there a particular special event associated with that?
Hold on, let me look.
There normally is a run.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that we're aware if that run is occurring during the pandemic, that they will need state approval for it.
It says that the program is comprised of weekly empowerment sessions, fitness sessions, and training sessions.
No, that's
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah, they don't reach the level of special events, I don't believe.
Okay.
They did have a special event this past year, and it did get forwarded onto the state. So I think they do occasional special events to fundraise to support some of these activities, and they're aware of the additional requirements right now.
Yeah, but I think this contract is just for that, those smaller scale trainings. So, okay.
They've had events for several years with the town of Southampton. Councilwoman Scalera, when she was in office, worked very closely with them.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. The contract just seems to be though for the weekly empowerment sessions.
It
Yeah.
seems so.
It's a good program.
Fitness sessions, training sessions. So, okay. All right. Sorry for the interruption. All right, Julie, you want to continue?
Sure. Town Board Resolution ID 35587, authorize the supervisor to execute the 2021 Human Understanding and Growth Services HUGS contract.
All right. 35429, authorize supervisor to sign a contract with local TV in order to simulcast programming on Sun 20 TV, a cable television public access channel. All right. Let me explain what this is. This Sun TV is the name. And I think, Julie, you've been working with this group, right? That's the public access. So we have CTV. They've decided to name it Sun TV. So you've got channel 20 is community, channel 22 is government. And this would allow for the simulcasting. Is that what it is? Look at, it's simulcast programming on Sun TV. So this would be for LTV. All right, I see exactly what this is doing. So this authorizes $25,000 from the cable contract, the franchise fees, to go to LTV. LTV is a not-for-profit in East Hampton town, and they run both the government channel and they run the community channel in East Hampton. They have a very active channel 20, very, very active, and they have developed hundreds and hundreds of hours of programming. A lot of it is East End programming. A lot of it is town of Southampton, be it Bridgehampton, Southampton Hospital shows. Gene Shafferoff has a show. they have a lot of East End programming. And as we begin the new year, taking over Channel 20, which if you turn on Channel 20 right now, you don't really know what you're going to get, but it's not really ever East End programming. It's Zabby talking about government or her opinions. There's,
10 years ago.
there's all kinds of weird stuff. And it's from Western, it's all of Long Island. And I don't think very many people actually watch Channel 20. So what this will do basically is we will immediately simulcast all of East Hampton's LTV's program. So we'll have a baseline that is, some of it may be East Hampton, some of it will be Southampton, but 24 hours a day, basically on Channel 20, there'll be something that we can relate to. And we will now have the ability to override that with our own developed programming. So if the library or the school or, some community member wants to do a show, we can upload it. And if you think about it as layers, that's the background layer. We can punch in on top of that whenever we want to. So as we develop content, so rather than having just the rainbow colored bars there most of the time in the occasional content, we'll have constant content, and then we'll we'll overlay our content. As we develop more and more content, there'll be less and less of that LTV content. They will also make their studio available to us, so we can film in their studio if we wish. They'll make their expertise available to us. So that's what this does, and it kind of kickstarts us in a positive way. I don't think we'll need to do this more than the 1 year, but we've had a lot of discussions with LTV, and I don't know if Julie, if you want to add anything to what I've said, but I think it's going to be, I think it's the right way to start.
So what would be the goal here, in what's the 2-year, 5-year plan as far as developing our own content and our own version of this?
All right, so we'll have a community board, a Sun TV board. Will be comprised of community members interested in public access TV. We will do, Connie will be involved with this in reaching out to the schools and to the, libraries and to the civic groups and to citizens to make them aware of that this is their resource, that they can develop their own shows. You can do this on your iPhone. Literally, you can make a show on your iPhone or on a laptop. It's really not that hard. And, some people with just a little bit of training. So if the school wants to put the football game up or, the basketball game, as long as somebody films it and, if they request our folks to go and film something, if we will do that. But the parades and things like that. So the goal is to little by little develop more and more of Southampton centric programming, and allow for the community to have, it's sort of what you've been doing, Tommy John, in a sense with the Southampton Arts and Cultural Committee, when you talk about art in public places. Like, this is a place for expression. It's an expression zone that goes right into your home. And a lot of young people are already taking advantage of Twitter and Instagram and Facebook to, get their photographs out there, to get their, things that they're interested out into the world. This is one other very community sort of geo-fenced way to get something out there into the world. So I hope I'm answering your question, but that's the goal, is to develop more and more content so that hopefully by next year we have enough content at least to cover the main times of the day.
I know the Arts and Cultural Committee would be very interested in this, and I'm sure many other committees in the town would as well, to get some programming and information out to the community. So this is good.
Yeah, I mean, when I do my channel shifting, and I often watch those channels up in there, the 22, our channel, 23, 24, 25, on channel 20, even if it's just student art, I would rather look at that than Zabby. Don't tell her that. No, she's probably watching. So, but I would rather look at that,
Of course.
some kid from, Hampton Bays Elementary School painting of the flag. I'd rather see that. So, it's this opportunity. We have to take advantage of it. If we don't take advantage of it, there's not going to be much to see. But we need to really encourage the community to use the resource. All right. So that is that resolution.
Okay, next, resolution ID 35575, authorize the purchase of food products and related supplies from Omnia Partners with Premier Inc. with distribution through US Foods.
All right, 35605, authorize the purchase of maintenance, repair, and operations, MRO supplies, parts, equipment, materials, and related services from the Omnia Partners contract with WW Granger.
Resolution ID 35596, authorize the purchase of milk and dairy products from the New York State OGS with Creamaland Dairies LLC.
35576, authorize the purchase of tires from the Suffolk County contract with Barnwell House of Tires. 35583, authorize supervisor to execute an amendment to the contract with Oliver Packaging and Equipment Company as sole source provider of complete system packaging trays for senior services.
35591, authorize the supervisor to execute and amend with Tyler Technology Incorporated to provide staff familiar with assessment updates, hearings, and small claims assessments against the town.
35590, authorize the supervisor to execute an extension with Nelson Pope and Voorhees for the preparation of a market analysis, traffic impact study, and supplemental generic environmental impact statement in connection with the Hampton Bays Downtown Overlay District.
Resolution ID 35584, authorize the supervisor to execute the 2021 Family Service League contract for the South Fork Behavioral Health Initiative and the Youth Outreach Umbrella Program.
35585, authorize the supervisor to renew the town's maintenance agreement with MaxVault LLC, Printer Logic, and MaxCloud and MaxClerk.
Town Board Resolution ID 35586, authorize the supervisor to sign a sole source contract with General Code LLC for services to the town clerk's office.
35589, authorize the supervisor to sign agreement with RecPro software from RC Systems Incorporated for Parks and Recreation Program registrations.
All right, 35593, which I don't know that we've discussed, authorizes the supervisor to sign consultant agreement with Michael J. Zarro to assist the Southampton Town Police Department with the Hexagon computer-aided dispatch software and the niche records management software. It's 35,000 or not to exceed 35,000. And I guess this is something that our chief is asking for, to be able to tap into Lieutenant Zarro's expertise to help train other officers. So if we have questions, let's try to reach out to the police chief prior to that. Councilman Scavone, do you have any more insight in that?
No, I don't.
Okay.
Well, I can tell you, Jay, that we have been working very closely as a records management officer with Lieutenant Zarro in regards to the records management for the police department. So he has been the leader in organizing and getting their systems up to speed and in compliance. So, and this may extend beyond into their actual current use. But he's been working on the records management for the police department with us for many years now. So he's probably very knowledgeable and has a lot of institutional knowledge as to how the systems work.
Okay.
Which would make this appropriate for someone who's retiring in this position to continue working with the new folks in place. Okay.
Right. It's the rate is $50 per hour, which it seems quite reasonable and appropriate. So it may never reach the 35,000, but if it's needed, they'll have that ability. I think that's the limit that he's able to receive as well in retirement. So, okay, let's move on to the next resolution.
Town Board Resolution 35594 to award and authorize the supervisor to sign a contract for the North Sea Park Pickleball Court.
Sunday, would you add me as a co-sponsor on that one?
Absolutely.
Knew that was coming.
No surprise there. Right? It's funny, I haven't played at all throughout the entire pandemic. Not that I've had any free time, but it's been only indoors, and I just don't. I refuse to play indoors. So, but it'd be nice to have some outdoor courts.
Right.
All right, Councilman Martel.
Okay, Town Board Resolution 35581 to recall and amend Town Board Resolution 2020-1014 for the Watermill Community Club. Town Board Resolution 35582, recall and amend the Town Board Resolution 2020-1015 for the Watermill Museum.
All right, 35572 amends Resolution 1093 of 2020 with Cornell Cooperative Extension. This is this seems to be related to the same thing that John and I talked about earlier. So John,
We're going to withdraw this.
All
Yes.
right. Well, apparently I'm the lead sponsor. So can clerk, can you just withdraw this one?
Certainly.
All right. All right. 35602, 2021 notice to bidders, notice to bidders modifications to existing leachate pump stations.
Town Board Resolution ID 35592. It's a 2021 request for proposals for town hall masonry repairs, window replacement, and wood trim refurbishment.
35578 amends 2021 adopted budget for CTV 20. That relates to that, the moving of the $25,000 I spoke of. It looks like they're actually, I said it was cable franchise fees. It looks like it's not all coming from there. It looks like some unallocated insurance money is moving into that line, into the contract line. All right, next one is, so sorry, I misspoke earlier. 35606 amends the 2021 town police fee schedule. It's changing outside storage fees from $30 a day to $40 a day. Next one is 35598, authorized payment to Suffolk County Water Authority for main extensions in certain areas of East Quogue. You guys are all familiar with the work that we did there in East Quogue to connect people to public water. 35580 recalls and rescinds Town Board Resolution 1127 of 20. Anybody know what that resolution was?
That was probably, I'm assuming that's the one where we had the expert who, we were going to retain an expert concerning the litigation I have, a titled expert, and that expert was not available. So we have another resolution later on, his 35579, hiring it, rescinding this one, and then we're going to be hiring a new titled expert, a couple of resolutions from now.
Thank you, Jim. All right. Yeah, I mean, these resolutions really, when they recall and rescind a resolution, should state what the resolution
Yeah,
was.
typically we do. I just noticed that one. We can amend that if you want, just to reference the prior resolution. I believe that's the one.
Yeah, we should be certain. So
Right, absolutely.
before we undo a prior resolution.
Right.
All right. The next one, 35577, resolution to authorize the settlement of a matter with the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation in connection with the town of Southampton Public Safety Building.
That, if you have any That was, had to do with an applicant, a pesticide that was applied to the fire marshal's office. And we received some complaints, and we dealt with the DEC, and this is a proposed settlement of the action. The DEC brought a administrative action against the town on this matter. We didn't feel that we were responsible for it. It should have been the company. DEC originally requested a much larger fine, and this is a result of a settlement.
It was a pesticide that was used outside the building? Is it
It was actually inside the building.
like a rodenticide kind of thing?
Right. Yes, I believe so. It contained a chemical that the town was not aware that was going to be applied there. The town moved pretty quickly to address the issue, and any employee who might have been concerned about it, the public safety department at the time worked with them, and then so this is really as a result of that. DC got involved. It did an investigation, and like
So
I
is
said,
a private contractor actually applied the chemical?
yes, that's correct.
Are we able to get the $1,500 fine from?
That's, yeah, we'll be looking to do that, Mr. Supervisor, so we can get the amount of the fine. The DEC, there was two levels. The allegations in the DEC is that the town didn't necessarily act on it quick enough. That was an issue of dispute. But and as I said, they initially wanted a much larger, seeking a much larger penalty from the town.
All right, let's move on. 35579 retains John Lynch Esquire as it relates to litigation filed against the town. That's the one you're saying,
Yeah, correct.
that replaces.
Yes, that's for our title expert, and involving this is an action where the title company is actually trying to remove a conservation easement that was placed on a piece of property by the county, and the properties in the town of Southampton. And the county and the town are actually co-defendants on this matter, and I believe it's a very important matter as far as conservation is, integrity of the conservation easement program. I've actually reached out recently to both the Nature Conservancy as well as Peconic Land Trust and the Group for the East End to ask them to bring support for our action on this, because it's
Is this related to a conservation easement or just related to the condemnation of a property?
conservation easement. It was a piece of property that was sold by the county back in 2000, and there was a conservation easement that was placed on it.
Isn't this the You and Me Homes?
This is correct. Yeah, Yumi Homes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and then the property was transferred a number of times, and then ultimately sold by somebody for a large amount of money. Essentially, we feel the title company missed the restriction,
Oh, so,
and then they're trying to remove the restriction, and it's
okay.
it could have an impact on this particular property, but overall it could have a tremendous impact on the integrity of the.
This is not the house that was torn down on
No.
the beach.
No, it's a vacant land up in North Sea.
Okay.
But it's an important case, for its own right. But it's a very important case as far as the integrity of the conservation easement
Okay.
program.
All right.
Counselor, I get just a question about that. Were any of the trees taken down, or were there any structures put on the property, or any clearing?
No, not at all. Not at all. No, the properties remain exactly the way it was. There hasn't been any no building permits issued, nothing on it. There's been no development at all. It's just it's more of an issue on it's just a title issue right now. There's been no change on the property whatsoever.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. Well.
All right. 35436, a resolution to adopt amendment to Town Code Chapter 111, Beaches, Parks, Waterways, in connection with parking at Long Beach. And I think we held that hearing too. I don't think anybody spoke at that. Did we get any correspondence on that? The Long Beach parking permit?
Sunday, you're.
Sunday, you're muted.
There you go.
Sorry. Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. And I think the record's now closed on that, so we should be able to vote on that. 35506, 2021 part-time salaries. 35480 accepts resignation of Wesley Merritt, building inspector and plant management. 35483 appoints Paul Sopko to construction equipment operator position in municipal works, waste management division. 35552 notice public hearing to consider amending town code chapter 250 outdoor sidewalk dining to waive particular provisions in response to the COVID-19 pandemic, subject to the fire marshal's approval. I certainly will appreciate it if this happens. Probably Sunday will too, as well as Janice in my office. I have to sign 4 of these more than every week. It's every 5
Yes.
days. I signed 4 copies of new versions of this to reflect the date changes. Because as you know, any emergency order waiving a provision of the town code can only last 5 days. So this will really help. John, I think you're next, right?
I have a question about the earlier one, Jay, if I could.
Which one?
The code amendment 35552. Outdoor dining. Is there language that connects it to the governor's executive order issued on March 7th of last year? In other words, so long as a state of emergency exists, that this code be in effect. I don't
Yeah.
see-
Believe it does.
It says due to COVID-19 pandemic. In other words, we may.
In section 1, it says it.
Yes, it does. It specifically states, for so long as the governor's executive orders limit the indoor occupancy of restaurants. Yeah, so,
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It says it in the legislative intent, but not in the code. That's being,
it's,
you may want to add it into the code.
I think it's right in the
I think it's in
amendment.
the code.
Yeah, 250-2C. Oh,
Can I, it's Ryan, can I just comment on this one?
Sure.
absolutely.
This code that was drafted by Kathleen, first, thanks to Jim and Kathleen for addressing this one. We're supportive of it as kind of just a temporary bridge with the intent that we'd like to look at possible long-term change to this code, but this will save from the 5-day orders having to be done. I hate to make any long-term changes on the code based on what we're experiencing in the pandemic, with the assumption that hopefully the pandemic ends sometime soon. But I do think that this happens to be a section of the code that we may need to examine and address, and maybe go to annual permitting as opposed to these limited times during the year. I think historically that's what we've done, but I don't know that we need to stick with that short duration season. We might be able to just do an annual.
Yeah.
Okay, I agree with this, and I agree with what you're saying. I'm just saying that in the change portion of the code, I think we should specifically reference the governor's executive orders issued on March 7th, rather than in the legislative intent.
Oh,
It's
yeah, I believe it does, but right in the section, it specifically states, for so long as the governor's executive orders limit the indoor occupancy of restaurants and dining establishments due to the COVID-19 pandemic. And then it said the fire marshal has the discretion to waive the provisions of this, that prohibit the outdoor dining. So I think it covers it.
Okay.
Yeah, I see it in the intent. Which part are you reading, Jim?
The actual amendment itself, if you look at page 38, 250-2, see?
Yeah.
Section 2.
2C.
The underlined, that paragraph there, 250, that's the language that's going to be added to the code.
For so long as the governor's executive order limits the indoor occupancy of restaurants and dining and stuff. Okay.
That's okay, fine.
Is that good?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. John.
Maybe biased, but if Kathleen Murray wrote it, it's probably correct.
Probably. All right, John, you're next.
Town Board Resolution ID 35493 is a notice of public hearing to consider accepting a grant of trail easement in connection with the abandonment of Harrison Avenue North Sea.
ID Resolution 35574, notice of public hearing to consider local law enacting Southampton Town Code Chapter 160 entitled Mining and Land Reclamation. This is the code that we actually had a public hearing on in July of 2019, requiring sand mines to put down water monitoring wells around their sites.
Is this, Tommy John, did you change it at all since that?
Yeah, we've worked it, right? Mr. Councilman, if you want to discuss, or I can talk a little bit about it.
Yeah, well, we worked on the preemption clauses with the violations for if there is any kind of contamination that is governed by the New York State DEC. What this focusing on is the requirement to have the wells and to do the testing as part of the local permitting process,
Right.
and the enabling legislation passed by our state delegation last year.
Right. I think the objections, if we recall, were mostly about, not so much about having the requirement for the groundwater monitoring, but who does the enforcement afterwards. And as we know, recently the governor vetoed legislation that was in front of him that was passed by the legislature to give more powers to the local municipalities on this issue. But what this does is gives us the ability to do the groundwater monitoring, as Councilman mentioned. And then at that point, if there is contamination, well, just another set of eyes and ears here, and then we can notify either the DEC or the county and state health departments about what has been discovered from the groundwater monitoring, and then the enforcement will be on their ends.
Okay, so we can't shut down an operation if we're seeing a plume beneath it. And
Right.
I mean, I sort of understand that, because they might argue that it's not from them, which they probably would argue, but at least
Sure.
we could give this information to the DEC and they could drill down even further.
Right, exactly. No pun.
Literally and figuratively.
The town also has input into the location of the wells.
Yeah.
And if we ever see a sub-watershed plan, we can put monitoring wells on either side, or require that monitoring wells be placed on either side of the site. So presumably we could see what groundwater flow is coming under the site, and then what's passing under the site onto other properties down gradient of the water flow. We did consider that, because that's the first thing that I think everybody says, is that it's not me, it's someone else. So we did try to take that into consideration. So each plan will have to be approved by the town.
Okay,
Yeah.
no,
The location of the wells that go in.
Another level of scrutiny, which is a good thing, obviously.
I know this is something Councilwoman Scalera had been working on, and I appreciate you sort of picking this up and working on some of the issues and bringing it back to us. So thank you, Tommy John.
Sure.
Yeah, I think
And she has continued to work on it, as being a deputy attorney in the office as well here.
Oh,
Yeah,
good.
I think the whole board at some point, we've, been dealing with this over a period of time. And one thing I did want to point out with the, and I'm not sure in reading it, and I think I discussed this previously, that I think we need to make some connection to the county sub-watershed study. I think it's captured in here, but maybe offline, Tommy John, we can talk about that, because that's part of that same issue. And if this law was coordinated with that, that would be helpful.
I don't quite understand. The county sub-watershed plan, to my knowledge, has not been made public yet. So
They actually are public, but they're selective in where they've completed that. So, you would anticipate that ultimately that sub-watershed should cover these areas, all the sand mines as well. So it's just a data point that, you could take advantage of in the law. That's the only point I'm making.
if we could, how have they been made public? Because I'm very interested in this?
Well, you got to go and actually ask for certain areas. It's, you know, they're still in the throes of publicizing. They have publicized it for different areas in some cases. You know, Ross Baldwin has, you know, that captured information right now. I'm not sure, you know, if you overlay that over sand mines, I'm not sure, you know, where that is. So I'm just making that point that as that effort grows and materializes, it'll be certainly be a resource for this legislation.
Okay, I did get confirmation too that other resolution I questioned rescinding the prior resolution was related to that you and me homes, and the person we were retaining in conjunction with that. So I don't have any other resolutions. Were there any other add-ons? No? All right, then is everybody okay to approve the draft and allow Sunday to publish it? Okay.
Yes.
Hearing no objection, Sunday, you're good to go. So back to the agenda. I think I got to pull it up here. It was Lisa Combrink, our CPF program manager, was scheduled for about a half an hour ago, but I'm sure she's used to this. So let's see if Lisa's on the call. She's going to update us on the CPF
Yes.
program. And you may have seen a memo that was distributed as well related to this. So Lisa, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, thanks, Jay. Good morning, everybody. Happy
Good
New
morning.
Year, if
Morning,
I
Lisa.
haven't gotten to tell you that yet. I'm going to pull up a screen share for you for a PowerPoint that we prepared for today. Okay, can everybody see that?
Yes.
Yes.
Great. All right, first of all, I'd like to thank all of you for your support and your guidance to the CPF program during the last year. And since I started as manager of the program, it's been really rewarding work to do. And you've all been very helpful in your guidance and in your comments as we've reviewed the properties that have been considered for acquisition. And as we've discussed other aspects of the CPF program, I would like today to just give you an overview of what happened in 2020 in different parts of the program, and talk a little bit about what our goals and objectives are for next year. All right, if I can just figure out now how to get the next slide up. All right. Just going to focus on a couple of the highlights of our acquisition program. During the last year, despite the pandemic, we purchased over 30 properties. Some of the closings were done under very unusual circumstances, as I've mentioned to you before, including outside in my backyard, in parking lots. You know, we've had to, like many people, be more flexible in terms of how we've closed our transactions. But we've been able, in many cases, to add to our existing holdings, which, as you all know, is something that we like to do in order to build on previous acquisitions, so that we are holding larger blocks of property rather than focusing on smaller pieces that are not connected to any already preserved properties. In the category of open space, we preserved over 185 acres last year. I'm just going to share with you some photographs of some of the pieces. This is the 3D Associates property in Remsenburg. This is 160 acres of open space. We were very fortunate to acquire this property. As you know, or may recall, this property was the subject of a subdivision application.
How many acres was that?
160.
So the total we preserved was 185 and one property was 160?
Correct.
Wow.
We have other properties that are in other categories such as wetlands and trails. So the 185 is relates back to our various categories of properties in the CPF project plan.
Where is this property located?
This is in Remsenburg,
Remsenburg. Yeah, that's a big piece of property.
very big piece. One of the other pieces we acquired is the Patchogue property. This is also on the west end of town. This is Brocard Development, which is further east. Which has a nice trail.
That 160 acres, you said was Remsenburg? Was that the one?
That was the green.
Is that the one that was, I thought that was in Spionk or?
Maybe Spionk, Remsenburg, yes.
The subdivision that would.
Subdivision, Green Gables subdivision.
Right, that was Green Gables.
Green Gables, right, yeah.
Off of Old Country Road and Spionk.
Right, that was a really big piece of property, right?
Right, really large piece of property. The next one that we wanted to show you a picture of is Brocard Development, which is a little over 4 acres in North Sea. And the last photograph we have is DePiro, which is almost 2 acres. And this is in West Hampton, and it's along one of the creeks. Very nice piece. So those are some of our open space parcels. Then moving on to the wetlands category, relating again back to the CPF project plan categories. We preserved and purchased last year almost 16 acres of properties classified specifically as in the wetlands target area. One of the larger pieces is Corrigan, which is in Watermill on the pond. This was a property that took a while to close because it did have a house on it.
This is on Mill Pond, right?
Yes, correct. This house was removed by the owners prior to closing, and they obtained all the permits, did a really nice job of clearing the property of all the improvements.
It's out on a small peninsula into Mill Pond, if I remember.
That's a really nice piece.
Mm.
In
Right,
our
you're correct.
farmland category, we purchased and paid the first half of an installment sale on the Bower Forest Park property. These are 4 already subdivided lots in the village of Sagaponack. And we are hoping we will be closing and paying the second part of that purchase this month. And we hope that we'll be able to utilize this property as part of an incubator program for young farmers to learn how to do the business of farming. And then hopefully we can combine it with one of our other preserved properties, which was in the Hildreth family in Bridgehampton, to do some type of farm stand or showcase for the activities that will be done on the Bower property.
Yeah, so the farm stand would literally be on Route 27.
Correct.
Associated with the farming, which is more in a residential area.
Right.
It would give those young farmers the opportunity to sell some of their the products in a much better location.
Mhm.
Right.
I'd like to see this connected to the program that's been developed at Bridgehampton Schools. They have a small garden that we have purchased, and they work the small garden. Perhaps that could be expanded over
I
That's
to
want
the.
to mention on this because, you know, this one, we bought the fee. So we own the underlying land here, but it's very important to me that we control the way this one is farmed because it is in such close proximity to a sensitive water body that, you know, the more we can limit fertilizers and particularly prohibit certain pesticides, the better. So, you know, I think that I'm hoping that this is organically farmed in our management.
Moving on to another category in the CPF project plan, Village, Hamlet Green Parks and Recreation. We purchased last year the Rayner Estate property, which is in West Hampton. It's a very sweet parcel, which has a small marina, and it has, you'll see in the background, an old fish house. So we've made an inspection of that property, our department, Parks and the town engineer, and we're working on, how this property will be used and what improvements might need to be made in order to utilize this piece, and also how to handle the historic fish house that's on the property. It's a really neat building.
Lisa, are you thinking of allowing boats to dock there at some level?
It was used as a marina in the past. It was a very local, popular marina for simple, I would say. It does not have any of the amenities that the more up-to-date marinas had. I don't think this even has water. So there would need to be a number of things done there in order to open it up to the public.
Is this an appropriate site for aquaculture? And could that fish house be used in conjunction with, let's say, an oyster growing program?
I don't know the answer to that, Jay. I'm not sure what they would require. It's a one room building, basically, open inside. It has a few shelves in it.
Okay.
And that's it. So I don't know whether it would be large enough or appropriate for that kind of use, but that's an interesting
Maybe Councilor
idea.
Bouvier could look at it. I don't know if the water there is appropriate for that type of use, but.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
It's a little shallow, and we did actually have a local resident who's promoting hatchery and trying to promote aquaculture in the area. It was one of the areas that we looked at to try to help do that. It was, there's a lot that needed to be done to it. And there were some other areas that were probably more favorable to aquaculture that are in open water.
Thank you, John.
Another category that we purchased property in is the property that's designated strictly as trails. And the Kotasuko property, which is in Noyak, about 5 acres, is the single property we purchased strictly designated under the trails category. Now I'd like to just, and we have one other, sorry, and that's our historic places and properties. We have let's see, this is the Coble property, where we purchased a historic preservation and conservation easement, or more commonly known as a facade easement, on this very beautiful home on Old Country Road. And we also completed our purchase of a facade easement on the Sag Harbor Cinema.
Right, we had purchased in the prior year the commercial rights, right? And then once the facade was reconstructed, we were able to close on the facade easement.
That's correct. It was a two-part transaction. We purchased the restrictive use easement, which controls how the building can be used as a community resource. And then once they obtained their certificate of occupancy from the Village of Sag Harbor, we closed on the facade easement. They did a really terrific job. And I think some of you attended, or maybe all of you attended, the informal opening of this early on during the COVID pandemic. I next wanted to talk about our stewardship activities and our capital projects. So just review the capital projects first, since those pictures are coming up. First, this is the Nathaniel Rogers House in Bridgehampton on Main Street. I think most of you were there for the raising of the cupola on top of the building. And you can also see the balustrade, which was put around the edges of the top of the building. The interior renovations are completed. We are working on some troubleshooting with the HVAC system. But I think once the CO is issued, we can have hopefully an opening and everybody can see the amazing job that Lipsky did on the inside of this building. It's really incredible. Next, here's our Tiana Life Saving Station, which is on June Road in East Quogue, Hampton Bays. The exterior of the building itself has been finished, including the installation of the very large doors, which are on the front and the back of the building. This year, we'd like to spend the time to repair the deck, which you can see that's at the back of the building, to do the site work around the building, and also to work with our architects and with you to decide how the interior of the building will be finished and how it will be used. And I'll be working with Julie Green, our town historian, to assist in making some recommendations to you on what we can do with the inside of the building so that this is really a beautiful marquee project for the town as a historic property.
The deck is a real asset. I would love to see that improved and maybe some picnic tables out there for people to,
Right. We think we can make some small repairs so that it can be used and we don't have to spend the money to replace the whole thing. The other thing I wanted to mention is Julie Green is in the process of securing the anchor from the ship called the Circassian, which sunk off of Watermill in the late 1800s from Babylon town, I believe. And if all works out, it will be moved to this property, and we'll find a good spot for it in the front. And it would be an important part of the history of this area if we can get that anchor onto the property. The next is the Tupper Boathouse. Chris Fenton worked successfully in obtaining a grant to elevate the building and stabilize it. That has been completed. During the next year, we will have hopefully soon an RFP for architectural services. And hopefully we can hire an architect this year that will prepare the plans. And if all goes well, then we can move forward to complete the restoration of the building and work with the North Sea Maritime Group, who have been engaged in fundraising, as you know, to use this property as a location for boat building classes and for other activities related to North Sea and to the maritime history of the town of Southampton.
Yeah, I should say the picture doesn't do it justice in its current state. It's looking really, really nice. They've done a really great job.
Yeah, they have done a great job. The last property I wanted to share with you is the Southampton African American Museum, which is on North Sea Road in Southampton Village. And as you can see, it's coming along very nicely. We unfortunately had to remove the initial contractor from this job. We hired, pursuant to the municipal requirements, a new contractor. And they've done a nice job in getting the project back on track. And we're hopeful that that will be completed, and we plan for it to be completed during the first quarter of this year.
Good.
In our water quality improvement activities, as I'm sure you remember, since it wasn't that long ago, we recently awarded, or you awarded, grants in the amount of $6.1 million for approximately 9 projects, water quality improvement projects. And those ranged from projects in Sag Harbor Village to the continued work on the sewage treatment plant, hookups in West Hampton Beach, improvements in Southampton Village, among others. In our septic rebate program, this year we took in 261 rebate applications for the new IA systems. Last year, 2019, we only brought in 52 applications. So that's almost a 400% or more than a 400% increase in the amount of rebate applications that have been filed with the CPF office. This year we paid $1.375 million out already on 93 applications that were completed this year. So it's been a very active program and a great benefit to the homeowners in Southampton Town who want to upgrade their existing systems. Between the rebate program, the East Quag hookups, and the grant program, we're hoping that this year we will be able to have a person come on to CPF who will manage this part of the program as an administrator. I've been working with Sandra in HR and civil service. So she's been working with civil service to identify and secure the appropriate position title for this work. Does anybody have any questions on that?
I have a question, two questions actually. One, a few years ago, Lisa, we did a community update. We sent out a mailer. I thought it was really nice.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked about this a little bit. This is great information, but we're spending a lot of money. It's taxpayer dollars, and of course, it comes from the Community Preservation Fund and the real estate surcharge. But I think that the public should be aware of how we're spending the money and all the properties that they can now enjoy, either visually or actually, for hiking purposes or access to waterways. So what is the status of doing another townwide mailer?
I have updated the text of that, and we're in the process of putting in some new photographs, and I'll be working with Colleen. We've already been in touch, and she's going to help put that update together so that it can be mailed out during the first quarter, and also to have available in town hall and in our office for anybody who wants to take a copy. The way the old brochure was organized, it was fold out, a very nice picture on the front, and then it had descriptions of different parts of the CPF program, and then you could open up the whole thing and it had a map and some more pictures of properties and that were open to the public. So I think we'll use a similar format, but just update it and update the map on it so that it identifies more of the properties that we now own.
Excellent. Can I just also ask you about that abandoned home that wasn't purchased with CPF on, I think it's Bay Avenue. It's been vandalized, graffitied, and I'm hoping that we're gonna transfer that maybe to the CPF program. Can you give me any update on that?
Sure, that is on for public hearing next week.
Okay.
Yeah. The authorizing resolution will be on 2 weeks from then, and that'll also include the transfer, I think, of the development rights off of that section of the marina property.
Okay, excellent.
Great. Finally, I'd just like to review some of our stewardship activities so that everybody knows what we're doing other than buying properties and running the water quality program. Stewardship is really a critical part of our program, and we've talked about this a lot over the last year. What happens after we buy a piece of property? Who takes care of it? Who gets to use it? How is that all managed? So just wanted to tell you kind of internally how we handle it in our office as far as monitoring these programs. So before a property goes to the Cpf Advisory Board, our staff goes out and takes a look at the property. They prepare a short report identifying the zoning, the location, the environmental attributes, groundwater information. We prepare aerials of the property, and the staff also takes photographs of the property, and those are all brought to the Cpf Advisory Board. And you see some of those aerials and some of that information when we discuss the properties prior to getting an appraisal or making an offer. When we purchase a property, then the staff prepares what's called a baseline documentation report. And that's kind of our starting point in keeping track of that property going forward. Most of the properties are inspected once a year, and that baseline documentation, which includes photographs that are kept in our database, are updated. And if we find problems with the property, for example, dumping or encroachments where neighbors are starting to add on to their lawn, or maybe they want to build an extra garden area, those are all brought into the office, and then we address those, usually with the homeowner directly if possible. We have a full-time ordinance enforcement officer now, and he's very familiar with the town since he worked in the fire marshal's office for so many years. And if necessary, he'll go and make a personal visit to a homeowner. If it's a second home, I'll send a letter, follow up with the owner or with their attorney. And we try to resolve any issues with neighbors that way if it's possible. Cooperation is always the best approach if that works. So that's what we do on an ongoing basis. If we have issues with neighbors encroaching and trying to take over town property, which is a very, very common problem, unfortunately, our staff often will build split rail fences and sometimes have to remove landscaping and other material after notice to the owner when we have an issue like that. But we've put up an awful lot of split rail fence this year, and I have to say they're beautiful fences, and they seem to work well. They're not overly intrusive, and they're attractive. Sometimes we have to install cameras if we have an issue with a neighbor cutting down trees or clearing our property. We've worked with the police department, with code enforcement on these kinds of issues. That's not as common, very egregious violations, but we have had to do that over the last year. At
least the split rail, I mean, just saying the split rail helps with, it doesn't impede the migration of the animals as well.
No, it doesn't, and it also doesn't significantly affect the view shed if it's a really nice open area.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the animals is a good point.
Yeah, we've had
And I'm
that.
sure the deer can jump over all of those split rail fences.
Yeah, and some of the smaller animals can duck.
Right, they can just go through.
That's been a problem in the past with the chain link, I think.
No, that's a good point. As I think all of you know, our ordinance enforcement officer also does patrols now on his ATV in conjunction with the police department and sometimes the county. He's done work mostly on weekends in trying to stop mostly, I'd say, young teenagers from riding on our town trails and just generally making new trails on CPF property. We do not monitor the regular town property, but we do work, on all our CPF property. He has, over the last year, successfully stopped a few people, young kids in particular, and given them a talking to and sent them and followed them to make sure that they headed back in the right direction. So we're going to continue working on that because I know that that's really, it's a hard issue. And we, one person, whether it's in the police department or CPF, can't monitor the, really hundreds of acres that we have of trails, unfortunately, but we try. And I think we've at least worked with the homeowners to let them know that we're available if they have a really serious ongoing issue. Finally, our invasive species control program continues. That was started probably about 15 years ago by Laura Smith, and She works with Juliana Quant in our office, and we also work with Jackson Dodds, a local landscaping company. A lot of times to hand pull things like Mile a Minute, which is a really difficult plant that just spreads like crazy and takes over everything. And so we do a lot of hand pulling. We do on select properties to really try to keep those invasive species from spreading and killing all the native vegetation, which is a lot of the basis why we want to acquire these properties, to preserve that vegetation and the habitat for wildlife.
Have we modified or clarified with that company which methodologies they may use?
Yes, I believe we did clarify that in an amendment to their contract. And we work closely with them on the methods that they use and the types of spraying that they do when they aren't doing hand pulling.
Okay.
So that's all I have. I just wanted to give you that overview. Really grateful for the great staff that we have here at CPF. Give a shout out to Adeline in particular, who keeps track of all the water quality information and deals with the public on a regular basis on that, and also keeps track of all our capital projects. And we've got a really terrific staff here who work very hard to keep this program going. And we're really grateful for your support.
Well, thank you, Lisa, and to the CPF committee and to everybody involved. It's been a really successful program, and I look forward to that, you putting everything together in that mailable form.
Yeah, I think that'll be important, as you said, so the public can know where the money is going. The other thing I just wanted to mention for this coming year, our CPF Advisory Board meets in a couple weeks, and we will be identifying priority properties to do outreach on and try to acquire, if possible this year, open space and agricultural parcels, so that we can do targeted and very systematic approach with your help to try to make the best use of the money that we have, so that we can hopefully preserve some of these critical parcels that are still available to us.
When you do the map, will you include just not the properties purchased in 2020, but
no, it's everything. Yeah, it's everything.
CPF?
Yeah, we're just going to update some of the photographs, maybe to include a couple other pieces. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, the program's been active now for 21 years or so, and I haven't gotten an update on all of the numbers. I know 2020 was a good year in terms of revenues for CPF, but we have to be getting close to the $1 billion mark.
I think we're pretty close.
So that would be interesting to note, and it would be good for the community to understand how fundamentally different it would be today had it not been for the CPF program.
Right. Well, this year alone, or I'm sorry, last year, 2020, we don't have our revenues for December in yet, but we collected over $68 million through the end of November of 2020, which is $31 million more than 2019.
Wow.
Yeah, we were almost close to 3,000 transactions last year, not including December. So it was a busy
that will
year.
affect the amount available for water quality not 2021, but 2022.
2022, correct. I did forget to mention one property. I don't have a photograph of it. I'm just thinking of it as Squiretown Park in Hampton Bays, which some of you have visited. That's the old Girl Scout camp on Red Creek Road. So we refurbished or cleaned up really the ranger station there, and Greg Matonis and Lance Aldrich in my office use that as their home base. It's right next to or near our garage, which has all our equipment in it. And since we did that, we've had more interest and activity at the property. The Boy Scouts in Hampton Bays have offered to steward part of the property, which would include helping take care of the trails and the areas of the park where the Boy Scouts regularly camp. And we also had a visit from another local organization that may be interested in making use of the property. So that's going to be one of our
I'd like
targets this year, is to really try to increase public use of that park because it's a beautiful
I'm
resource.
hoping that we're able to landmark the main lodge building and have CPF restore it. And also, there was a plan, I thought it was going to happen already, to rebuild the walkway to the water.
We do have, yeah, we do. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to know, I thought that was going to happen in 2020, but 2021, will we see that walkway rebuilt?
I really hope we do. We've been in touch with the DEC. We filed an application with DEC quite last year, and we've been working with them to try to, I would say, reduce the amount of information in terms of surveys and new surveys and things on a 65-acre property so that we can streamline the approval process. And they're working with us. So I hope we would get that approval soon. I don't know that what the timeline is.
Updated on that. And also in 2020, I thought we were going to build a elevated catwalk on the Goodale property out on Reeves Bay.
That project is still on the horizon. There were some changes made, and I think I don't have the updated plan. It kind of went back and forth, I think, in terms of how far out it was going to extend into the water and how the ice might impact that. So I will find out what the status of the new drawings is.
Okay.
The other thing I just wanted to mention on the landmarking of the dining hall at the Girl Scout camp, I have been in touch with Ed Wisnowski from the Landmarks Board, and he said they will be happy to cooperate with us on any application that we make for landmarking that building. So that's underway.
Oh, good.
That's great.
Anyone else? Questions for Lisa?
Thank
Just one question.
Hearing me out today.
I have one question for you, Lisa.
Yes, John.
And maybe we can talk offline about it. I just want to get a sense of how our stewardship programs are working. We have several organizations, and some work better than others. And I just wanted to get a sense of how that part of the CPF program is working in particular, and where we are, sort of a status of that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, I can check on that, and then we can discuss that. Happy to discuss that.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Anybody else have any questions?
Not a question, but a comment regarding the anchor from the Circassian that we're bringing back to the life-saving station. That has a particular piece of history in Southampton town. It occurred off of Bridgehampton, and a number of full-blooded Shinnecocks lost their lives in that tragedy in 1877, January. So it has special meaning for us here in Southampton town.
Thank you for mentioning that. Yes, it's a very sad story, really sad.
All right. Anything else? Oh,
I'm sorry to end this on that note, because really it was a great presentation, Lisa, and you're doing wonderful things.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity to do this today.
well, if we get the anchor back, then it's a good opportunity to teach people about that incident and honor the memories of the lives lost there. So,
Absolutely. Very important part of local history. Yes.
all right. Thank you, Lisa.
Okay. Thanks, everybody. Have a good day.
Thanks, Lisa.
Thanks,
Thank
Lisa.
you.
Julie, you need to sign off, correct? Or can you stay any longer?
I'm good for a while. Thank you.
Oh, beautiful. All right. Well, I don't think it's going to be a while longer. I think we're almost at the end. We do have updates. So I guess we've already heard from Ryan. So that was helpful. So other things that are happening, first half of property taxes are due January 11th. You can pay them online. It's the easiest way to do it. No risk. Just go to the town's website. to the town tax receiver homepage, and there's instructions on how to do that. It's lots of other information on the town's website and resources. Everybody's encouraged to make use of it, especially during this pandemic, because pretty much most of town services are now accessible online. Other things going on, we continue to have clerk meetings. That's the Community Law Enforcement Review Committee. Tommy John is part of that. We had one the other day where we had members of the law enforcement community talk about sort of their perspective and what it's like to be a police officer, the current climate, and if it's affecting their ability to do their job in any way, or their perceptions of themselves or the law enforcement community. It was a really good discussion. We also, on Tuesdays, added that youth advisor, John Lopez, and he's a great addition, asking really astute questions. And we're almost done. We have a few more meetings. We are going to do a second survey, community survey, on the town's webpage. And we'll try to drive as much participation as possible in that survey. It's a long survey. It's going to take about 20, 25 minutes to complete. It asks a lot of really detailed questions of the community, tries to get some more specific input. So that will be happening soon. And we're working on a community Zoom meeting as well, where anybody can share their thoughts about the Southampton Town Police Department on a Zoom meeting. And I don't know, Tommy John, is there a date for that yet? I don't think so.
We haven't set a date for that yet. Our office is going to help coordinate the public input for that meeting. And that we're going to make it available to anybody who wants to give public input in the town of Southampton to further continue our open discussions, which have been quite fruitful. And then our recommendations will come back to this board and we'll discuss it on this level.
So we have to give the governor everything, I think, by maybe the beginning of April, something like that. But yeah. We're trying to put together our recommendations now. We'll revise them as we get some more input from the community. And, over the month of February, I think we'll be starting to put the document together and bringing it to the town board. And, hopefully by the end of March, we'll have a final product. I think that's the goal. Any questions on that piece? All right, good.
No, but a bit of a shout out to Christine Scalera, a councilwoman on this board, who is working through in our attorney's office, who has been shepherding this thing as well as Frank Zappone, who is just fantastic in all of these things that he does.
I did communicate with Chief Skrnicki yesterday in regards to what was going on in Washington, D.C. and the storming of the nation's capital and concerns about potential acts of violence here at home. And he has been monitoring it very closely. I think we're all very disturbed by what we saw yesterday and the assault on our democratic institutions. So I pray for a peaceful transition of power. Congress, as you know, did certify Joe Biden as the next president. But it sure went late into the night before that happened. And I'm hoping that things start to calm down a little bit and the will of the people is honored. So other than that, let me see if there are any other items that I need to update you guys on. I'll look at my notes, but meanwhile, does anybody else have anything else they want to say?
Yeah, I do. I don't know if you guys know, but as part of the work we're doing to implement CCA in the town of Southampton, we got an early Christmas present on the 23rd. And I asked each of you you all signed a memorializing resolution in support of Fred Thiel's PSC oversight of LIPA legislation, and the governor signed that into law on the 23rd. So thank you guys very much. We had a big drive and hundreds of of Southampton town residents, as well as residents from other municipalities, inundated Albany with petitions in support of this law. And it's the Assembly Law 8936 and the Senate Law 6868. And I want to give a great thank you to Assemblyman Thiel, who at our urging and bequest went forward with this legislation, and Senator Gogren. It's an essential piece of legislation for us and one more step closer to CCA implementation. It now gives PSC full oversight over LIPA. It also allows us to have the ability to bring audits into LIPA to try to understand the fee structures, which is something that's hanging up the CCA implementation, the fees that we can't quite decipher. So what the law does essentially is it allows the PSC a clear set of oversight and an audit schedule should there be any malfeasance or abuse of the process, as well as their subcontractors, which is the real key for CCA. So I wanted to thank each of you guys for signing your own personal letters to the governor, as well as signing the memorializing resolution. It's really it's a big, very meaningful moment for the implementation of community choice aggregation. So thank you.
Any other updates? Julie, Tommy John, Rick?
I have nothing this week. Thank you.
Okay. Well, we're just getting started this year. You know,
Oh, I missed something. I just wanted to, I wanted to thank Frank Sapone and our energy chair, Lynn Arthur, who worked tirelessly on this with our sustainability committee. And really all credit goes to those two. You know, Tommy John, you'd mentioned Frank's involvement in what you're doing with the police commission. I see Frank, you know, Frank is a really great asset. And I just want to thank him personally and thank Lynn Arthur as well. So is one, we're getting closer and we're getting excited that we're actually going to be able to implement this program. So thank you. And Rick, thank you on the sustainability committee for your support as well. So very much appreciated. I'm very excited about what's about to happen. I apologize for interrupting you.
No, that's fine. At the organizational meeting, I went through a ton of different things that we're currently working on that I'm hoping to see move forward, you know, from the, ethics reforms to the community access channel, the Windsor Heart Project and Tupper Boathouse, all the restorations that we're hoping to do and complete, and moving code enforcement to Hampton Bays. And it was a pretty long list, but 2021 is going to be a very active year. The bike path in Hampton Bays, right, from downtown to Red Creek. I mean, there's so many different things that projects that will either be starting or finishing. So I know it's going to be a productive year, and hopefully this is the year where everybody gets vaccinated and our lives return to some sense of normal, maybe a slightly new normal, and maybe some of the technology that's helped us get through the pandemic will still be in place, like the online ability to access governmental services and things. So if anybody has any questions about anything I mentioned in the organizational speech, I'm happy, offline, just give me a call and I can update you on any of those projects. Meanwhile, and I see Janice Shearer is here. I don't know if maybe that's for exec session. I don't know. Janice, is there anything you want to say to the board?
Hi, can you see me? Hello.
Yep.
No, I was just listening in and, looking forward to working with everyone further this year for all the goals that you mentioned at the organizational meeting and what you've talked about today. I don't have anything much to add except that there's really a lot. So expect to see a lot of things coming forward on the agendas and work sessions.
Yeah, hopefully we'll get that
Early and organized, but there's quite a bit to tackle. So we're ready, but Hope you are too.
Hopefully we'll take care of that battery storage legislation and adopt that code.
The battery code will be coming up on that next, the later agenda in the month. We're just working through this.
Yep, and the housing plan, we have to adopt at some point, finish and adopt. So.
Yeah, we lost Janice. Your screen froze.
Yeah, you're glitching, Janice, but that's okay. We got the point, I think, and we love working with Janice. She's doing a great job over there in land management, and boy, they have their hands full. No question. So what I'll do then is I think it's time to go to executive session, and we have a couple items on for executive session. I know we have confidential legal advice. I don't know that we have personnel. I don't think so. And I don't know that we have land acquisition. I don't have that listed. Jim, do you know, is Lisa Combrink going to approach us?
I don't have anything listed for Lisa.
All right, so then we're really just confidential legal.
Yeah, I think we were.
All right, so I'll make a motion to, well, first, is there any other business? All right, seeing none, I'll make a motion then to end our regular work session, go into executive session to discuss confidential legal advice, or for confidential legal advice. Seconded by Councilman Scavone.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I grab the gavel here. Okay, we are adjourned for all other purposes.